It's Sheila with the Grateful Goddess, and I'm here in Fargo, North Dakota, and I'm excited to introduce you to Kristi Ulrich, who is the Executive Director for Face It Together, an addiction counseling service that just opened its doors. So I'm super excited. And so let's start with the prevailing message and mission of Face It Together.
Our mission is to get drug and alcohol addiction sufferers well, that it's a chronic disease, that we don't need to have shame and stigma, that let's normalize this disease and get people well that are suffering from it.
Wonderful. And what I'm super excited about is that you have just opened your doors, and prior to that, it's been a dream and a vision for how long? Tell me a little bit about the manifestation process.
I was hired to work this organization in October. We do have a headquarters in Sioux Falls. They've been working for a couple of years, and it's been really exciting. They needed to wait until a certain amount of money was raised until they could hire an executive. I came on board in October, and we moved forward planning this beautiful facility.
Great. And so honestly, it's so new that it opened
Tuesday,
and it is now Thursday. So 2 days into it. And again, talk about your successes, because in terms of the manifestation process, you really had to completely believe in everything working out, and that's not an easy process. In fact, I would say that when I'm working with people, that's probably one of the biggest hurdles, is that believing and seeing your vision coming true and not getting too hung up on the what is, like the current situation of where you are versus where you want to be.
Right.
And that's what you are so gifted at, being able to go to what you see as this vision. So
Right. So what I did is, when we found the location that we wanted to be at, I knew it was this place. I wrote the address down, and I had it on a large Post-it note above my door, or rather above my desk. And every time I sat down at my desk, because for the first several months I've been working from home, and I looked at that address and I knew that that was going to be where we were. There was no change of plans. I just knew in my heart, and we manifested that that's where we would be. And here we are.
Great, great. So it's also a lot of trust and faith that the funding will be there.
Correct. And it's a big part of it. Because we are a self-contained organization. We do not charge for the services when people walk through our door. So we are self-sustaining. People in the business community, we're really a social entrepreneurship organization. We rely on the business community to support us, and in turn we give them a workplace initiative that teaches people in the workforce about wellness and addiction. And if you have a healthy workforce, you have a healthy community.
Absolutely. I love that. I mean, it really is a vision with a purpose of making the world better, and I think that's what also helps all the energies come toward making a positive difference.
It is, and when we designed this space, we wanted it to be very welcoming and invigorating, so when you come in, you feel good about yourself and your journey of recovery.
Right, because you did talk a lot about that previously, in terms of there's so much shame around it, and people don't get the help that they need because they're embarrassed. And so how can we shift that level of embarrassment or shame and say how proud you can be of somebody for taking the necessary steps for improvement, because that's so much more powerful than staying stuck. It's kind of the same thing in terms of where you currently are versus where you can be. And when you focus too much on, but I'm an addict right now, you know, this is and I'm worthless, or whatever sort of thoughts are going through your head, you're going to stay stuck there.
Absolutely, and we have what's called the Recovery Capital Index. So we measure personal, social, and economic wellness. And there's 3 portions of the RCI assessment that we do. And you start out with an RCI number. It may be at a 50. It doesn't mean that's a bad score. It just shows that you have room for improvement. And after 30 days, you do that assessment again, and all of a sudden maybe your number went from a 50 to a 58. Inside, you know that you're getting better, and so you have the opportunity to say, hey, this road to recovery is for me, and it's good. It's a positive reinforcement for that individual.
Where people would feel really good about whether they see a friend or a relative or an employee walking through these doors, they know, oh, they're taking care of themselves, their family, their co-workers, whoever.
Right.
But you're happy for them.
Very happy for them.
Yeah.
And then that's why we also deal with loved ones, because for every one person that suffers from addiction, 3 to 4 more in the family or close by are suffering as well. So how do we get that loved one to feel better? And the first thing is for them to take care of themselves in order for them to help others.
That's a personal story that made you say yes, you wanted to get involved in this.
Well, I think even when I was looking, we had hired our recovery coach, Jake, to come on board, and we didn't have space for him to coach until we opened our doors. We went to a church here in Fargo, and the day I went to ask, someone working there had a child who was suffering from addiction, and she said, God placed you here today because I needed to talk to you. She had no idea what I was doing prior to that. So that was the beginning of it, and how we are placed in places for certain reasons.
Yes.
And really to be able to move forward with that. And now that we've gotten here, they're going to miss having Jake there because he was a light at that church.
But he'll just be shining it brighter and wider and all of that. So.
It is, and we have people here. This morning, our recovery coaches that were here just said it feels right walking through this door, and this is the right place for them to be. And if we can save one life, we're doing our jobs.
Is there any personal story in your own life that made you want to say, yes, this is, because, I mean, you have so many talents, and you were doing photography and bookkeeping and all these other things that are also big talents of yourselves when you were introduced and sort of lured into taking on this huge endeavor. And what made you say yes?
Something pulled at my heart, but part of it, I grew up with a grandmother and her spouse who we didn't always get to visit. Sometimes my dad would go in to check to see the condition, and sometimes we got to go in and visit, sometimes we didn't. But another great one was when I worked at the Ward Center Mall. I had a custodian that was a fantastic worker, and he suffered from addiction and had gone through every treatment facility, and there were times he would pass out on a bench. And he would throw his keys down after the police had come in, and he said, I don't deserve this job. And I didn't know how to help him. And now I know that this would be a method for him.
Right.
I also had a coworker whose son suffered from opioid addiction, and he was a man of means, and he said, I don't know how to help my child.
Right.
And now we've gotten involved with that family, so it's nice.
Good. Yeah, it's that heartwarming stories that you know that your mission is so needed.
It is.
And it is changing lives, and I think changing lives is
Changing lives and changing the way people view addiction.
yeah, that it isn't something that they're choosing, it's like they need the
Right. If you were to, it's a chronic disease, and if you came to work and you said, I have cancer, I start chemo next week, your workmates would come in and throw a potluck and give you as much support as possible. But if you came in and said, I'm suffering from addiction, they don't know how to respond.
Yeah.
So we need to normalize the disease so that we can give the support to our friends as well.
As you mentioned, you were hired in October, and then at the beginning of January, you came to the Goddess Getaway weekend and really got clear on your vision and what you wanted to create in your life. So is there a piece to that in terms of when you want to make really a big difference in the world, where it takes the self-care as well? Like, you wanna speak to
Absolutely.
that?
I do, because in the past, I am more concerned about everybody else rather than myself. So for me to take time to go to the Goddess Getaway was a big deal for me. To really, and it took me a day to unwind and to get into the mindset, but really to plan what's best for me, and if I'm doing good, then I can help others.
Right. And it did plan out what you wanted to create as well as the self-care.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was a combination.
It was all a
of the two.
combination of it,
Yeah.
and this organization with Face It Together is all about wellness for their staff as well as those that walk through the door.
And how better can you preach and teach wellness if you're not, creating the wellness within and for yourself. You need to walk the walk in order to talk the talk.
Absolutely, and you walk through these doors and you feel invigorated and you want to be here.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for taking this on. One of the reasons that I really wanted to have this conversation is because I feel as though there is so much going on in the world that is sad or depressing or, can cause a lot of anger and all those sorts of things, which is true. Absolutely it is. But if all of our attention goes towards all the things that are going wrong, we won't expand all the things that are going right. And so I love highlighting people that are doing things that have such a bright light and that are doing all the good in the world, and I think we need more and more of that. And so thank you for all that you do, my dear.
Thank you, my dear.
Mhm.